The sky above Varus 9 burned red as the first wave of missiles struck the outer farms. Hiren dropped the basket of vegetables she had been carrying and stared at the horizon. Massive ships descended through the clouds, their hulls black and covered in strange symbols. She had never seen anything like them before. "Run!" someone shouted behind her. "Get to the settlement!" Hiren ran. Her feet pounded against the dirt road as explosions echoed across the valley. Other colonists rushed past her, their faces twisted with fear. The Kelmar people had lived peacefully on Varus 9 for 30 years. They had never expected war to find them here, so far from everything. At the central settlement, Elder Torvak stood on the platform near the communications tower. His gray skin looked pale under the emergency lights. Hundreds of colonists gathered around him, all asking the same questions. Who were these attackers? What did they want? Would help come? "I have sent distress signals to every channel," Torvak said, his voice steady despite the fear in his eyes. "The Galactic Council will receive our call. They will send help." But even as he spoke, more ships appeared in the sky. These were smaller, faster. They swept over the settlement, and Hiren could see weapons mounted on their sides. The ships did not fire yet. They were watching, studying, planning. A young Kelmar named Jiho climbed onto the platform beside Torvak. He had been working in the communications center. His hand shook as he held a data pad. "Elder, I have received a response from the council." Everyone went silent. Torvak took the pad and read it. His face fell. For a long moment, he said nothing. Then he looked up at the crowd. "The council they have declared that Varus 9 is too remote to defend. They say that sending a military force would take weeks. They advise us to surrender and hope for mercy." The silence that followed was worse than the explosions. Hiren felt something cold settle in her stomach. No one was coming. They were alone. That night, the invaders landed. They called themselves the Vrex Dominion. Their soldiers wore heavy armor and carried weapons that could cut through stone. They moved through the outer settlements, taking anything of value. Colonists who resisted were killed. Those who surrendered were dragged away to the ships. In the central settlement, the remaining Kelmar prepared for the worst. They had no army. Their security force consisted of 20 officers with basic weapons. Against thousands of Vrex soldiers, they stood no chance. Elder Torvak continued to send messages. He broadcast on every frequency, hoping anyone would hear. "This is Varus 9, we are under attack. 50,000 civilians need help, please. Is anyone listening?" Days passed. The Vrex surrounded the settlement. Their commander, a tall figure with silver armor, sent a message. "You have until tomorrow at sunset. Surrender, or we will level your settlement and take what we want from the ashes." Hiren sat with her family in their small home. Her mother held her close. Her father stared at the wall, his face empty. Outside, they could hear the Vrex soldiers laughing, setting up their weapons, preparing for the final attack. "I'm sorry," her father whispered. "I brought us here. I thought we would be safe." "It's not your fault," Hiren's mother said. "The galaxy is a cruel place. We just wanted to live in peace." As sunset approached the next day, the colonists gathered in the central square. They did not want to die in their homes. If this was the end, they would face it together. Elder Torvak stood with them, his head held high. The Vrex forces began to move forward. Their weapons powered up with a terrible whine. Hiren closed her eyes. She thought of the life she had wanted. The farm she had hoped to run. The children she would never have. She thought of all the things that would never happen now. Then something changed. A sound filled the air. Not the sound of Vrex weapons. Something else. Something from above. Hiren opened her eyes and looked up. The sky was changing. Objects were falling through the atmosphere, trailing fire. At first she thought they were missiles. But they moved wrong. They moved with purpose. They moved like they were being controlled. The Vrex stopped advancing. Their commander looked up, shouting orders. Confusion spread through their ranks. The objects grew closer. Hiren could see them now. They were pods. Metal pods, each one the size of a small vehicle. They fell faster and faster, screaming through the air like meteors. Then they hit. Not in the settlement, around it. The pods crashed into the ground in a perfect circle around the colonists. The impact shook the earth. Dust and smoke filled the air. For a moment, nothing happened. The Vrex aimed their weapons at the pods. The colonists stood frozen, not understanding what they were seeing. Then the pods opened. And soldiers emerged. They were not like any species Hyaran had seen before. They stood on two legs like the Kelmar, but they were built differently, stronger. They wore armor that seemed to blend with their bodies, covered in weapons and equipment. Their faces were hidden behind helmets with glowing visors. One of them stepped forward. He was taller than the others, and his armor had different markings. He moved with absolute confidence, as if he owned the ground he walked on. His helmet retracted, revealing a face with dark hair and sharp eyes. "Colonists of Varus 9, he said in perfect Kelmar language. His voice was calm, but it carried across the square. "My name is Dahyun. I command the Earth Defense Force unit that just landed. We received your distress call." He turned to face the Virex forces. "You're not alone anymore." Elder Torvak stepped forward, his voice shaking. "Earth? But you're so far away. The council said no one would come." Dahyun looked at the Elder. For just a moment, something like anger flashed in his eyes. Then he smiled. It was not a kind smile. The council was wrong. Earth doesn't leave people to die just because it's inconvenient to save them. The Vrex commander's voice boomed across the square. "You are fools. There are only a few hundred of you. I have 5,000 soldiers. You cannot possibly." He never finished the sentence. One of the human soldiers raised a weapon and fired. The shot crossed the distance in an instant and struck the commander's shoulder, spinning him around. He fell to the ground, screaming. Dahyun's voice was cold now. "You have 30 seconds to withdraw from this settlement. After that, we will consider you an active threat, and we will respond accordingly." The Vrex did not withdraw. They opened fire instead, their weapons lighting up the dusk. Energy bolts filled the air, all aimed at the human positions. But the humans were already moving. They scattered with incredible speed, taking cover behind the pods and whatever else they could find. Their return fire was precise and devastating. Each shot seemed to find its target. Hyaran watched in shock as the humans fought. They moved like nothing she had ever seen. They communicated without speaking, coordinating their actions perfectly. When one soldier was pinned down, 2 others would immediately move to support them. They used the terrain, the buildings, even the colonists' abandoned equipment as cover, and they were winning. Against impossible odds, they were actually winning. One human soldier rushed past Hyaran. It was a woman, smaller than Dahyun, but moving just as fast. She stopped for just a second and looked at Hyaran. "Get inside! Find cover! We'll handle this!" Then she was gone, moving to the next position. As darkness fell on Varus 9, the sound of battle filled the air. But for the first time in days, Hyaran felt something she had thought was lost forever. She felt hope. The battle lasted through the night. Hyaran huddled with other colonists in the community center, listening to the sounds outside. Explosions, weapons fire, sometimes screams. But mostly she heard the steady rhythm of human weapons. They sounded different from Vrex guns, sharper, more controlled. A human soldier stood guard at the door. She was young, maybe close to Hyaran's age. Her nameplate read G1. She kept checking her equipment, scanning the darkness outside. When she noticed Hyaran watching, she smiled. It seemed strange to smile during a battle. "Don't worry," G1 said. "The commander knows what he's doing. We've been in worse situations." "Worse than this?" Hyaran asked. "There are so many of them," G1 shrugged. "Numbers don't mean much if you don't know how to use them. The Vrex fight like bullies. They're used to enemies that run away. They don't know what to do when someone fights back." Outside, something exploded. The building shook. Ji-won didn't even flinch. She just checked her weapon and kept watching. On the other side of the settlement, Dae-hyun crouched behind a damaged wall. His helmet display showed the positions of all his soldiers. Green dots for his people, red dots for the Vrex. There were a lot of red dots, but they were disorganized. Confused. "Minho, status," he said into his communication system. A voice replied immediately. "North sector secure. They tried to flank us. Lost 20 soldiers before they figured out we had already mined the approach." "Good. Sunwoo, how's the heavy position?" Another voice, deeper. "I've got eyes on their artillery. Give me the word and I can take it out." "Not yet. Let them think it's still useful." "Yuna, what's the chatter?" "They're panicking, sir." Yuna's voice came through clearly. She was in a pod converted to a command center, listening to Vrex communications. "Their commander is alive but wounded. He's screaming at his officers. They expected an easy fight. They can't understand how we're holding them." Dae-hyun allowed himself a small smile. Let's help them understand. All units, advance formation Delta. We're pushing them back. What happened next would be talked about for years across the galaxy. The humans didn't just defend. They attacked. 500 soldiers against 5,000, and they attacked. They moved in small groups, covering each other, using tactics the Vrex had never encountered. When the Vrex focused on one position, humans would appear somewhere else. When the Vrex tried to surround them, the humans would break through their lines and attack from behind. One human, a soldier named Junho, took position on a rooftop. He carried a long weapon with a scope. From his perch, he could see across the entire battlefield. He controlled his breathing, aimed, and fired. A Vrex officer fell. He aimed again. Another officer down. He kept firing, each shot taking out someone important: officers, weapon operators, communication specialists. The Vrex began to realize that their leadership was being picked off. They became more cautious, more afraid. In another part of the battle, a human named Yunji worked with 3 others to set up defensive systems. They moved with incredible speed, placing barriers and automated weapons. Within an hour, they had turned an open plaza into a fortress. When Vrex forces tried to cross it, they were cut down by precise fire. Elder Torvak watched from a window in the community center. He couldn't believe what he was seeing. The humans fought with such intensity, such focus. They never seemed to tire. When one was wounded, others would drag them to safety and keep fighting. They protected each other like family. Who are these people? He whispered to himself. Jiwon, still standing guard, heard him. We're just soldiers, Elder, doing our job. This is more than a job, Torvak said. You came across the stars for people you've never met. You're fighting against impossible odds. Why? Jiwon was quiet for a moment. Then she said, because someone had to. Because it's the right thing to do. On Earth we have a saying, we don't leave people behind. Any people. Doesn't matter if we know them or not. Hyerin moved closer to listen. But you're so far from home. If you die here, no one will remember you. We'll remember, Jiwon said simply. And that's enough. As dawn approached, the Vrex commander made a decision. He was humiliated. His shoulder burned with pain from the wound. His forces had lost hundreds of soldiers to a tiny human force. It was unacceptable. Bring in the fleet, he ordered. I want orbital strikes on the human positions. I don't care if our own soldiers are in the way. Kill them all. In orbit above Varus 9, Vrex warships moved into position. They powered up their main weapons, targeting the settlement below. The ships were massive, each one capable of destroying a city, but they never got the chance to fire. Space itself seemed to tear open. A swirling portal of blue light appeared, and through it came more ships. These were not Vrex ships. They were sleek and powerful, covered in weapons. Human ships. The lead vessel was a carrier called the Indomitable. On its bridge, a woman named Admiral Taewon sat in the command chair. She had received the emergency call from Daehyun 3 days ago. She had brought the fleet through FTL space at maximum speed, pushing the engines past their safe limits. All ships, weapons free, she said calmly. Target the Vrex fleet. Show them what happens when you attack civilians. The space battle was short and brutal. The Vrex had numbers, but human ships had better weapons and better tactics. Human fighters swarmed the Vrex vessels, hitting weak points and avoiding return fire. Human destroyers hammered the larger ships with missiles and energy weapons. One by one, the Vrex ships were disabled or destroyed. Those that could retreat did so, jumping to FTL as fast as their engines allowed. The rest were left floating in space, broken and burning. On the ground, Daehyun received the message. Commander, this is Indomitable. The orbital threat is neutralized. The sky is yours. Daehyun allowed himself to smile. Understood, Indomitable. Thank you for the assist. He switched to the general channel. All units, the fleet is here. Let's finish this. The Vrex forces on the ground realized their support was gone. Some tried to fight on, but their heart wasn't in it anymore. Others threw down their weapons and surrendered. The battle was over. As the sun rose fully over Varus 9, silence fell. The weapons stopped firing. The explosions ceased. Human soldiers moved through the settlement, checking on colonists and securing prisoners. Hyerin stepped outside the community center. The settlement was damaged but standing. Smoke rose from several buildings. But they had survived. They had actually survived. She saw Daehyun walking toward Elder Torvak. The human commander looked tired. His armor was scorched and dented, but he stood straight, his expression calm. Elder Torvak, Daehyun said. The settlement is secure. Medical teams are on their way down from the fleet. We'll help with repairs and make sure the Vreks don't come back. Torvak stared at him. Tears ran down his gray cheeks. You saved us. We thought no one would come. We thought we would die here. Daehyun placed a hand on the elder's shoulder. We came as fast as we could. I'm sorry we couldn't get here sooner. I'm sorry for what you went through. How can we ever repay this debt? Torvak asked. There's no debt, Daehyun said. Just, if you hear of others in trouble, send for us. Earth will answer. Around them, human soldiers were helping colonists out of buildings. Medics were treating wounds. Engineers were already assessing the damage. And Yaren realized something important. These humans, these warriors who had fallen from the sky, they didn't see the Kelmar as aliens or strangers. They saw them as people who needed help. And that made all the difference. Jiwon walked past, heading to join a medical team. She stopped when she saw Yaren. You okay? Yaren nodded. Thanks to you. Thanks to all of you, Jiwon smiled. That's what we do. Come on, let's get you checked out. Make sure you're not hurt. As Yaren followed her, she looked up at the sky. The human ships were visible now, orbiting the planet. She had never imagined such a thing. An entire fleet, coming all this way just to save people they didn't know. Maybe, she thought, the galaxy wasn't as cruel as she had believed. Maybe there was still hope after all. 3 days after the battle, Yaren helped clear rubble from the market square. Around her, humans and Kelmar worked side by side. It felt strange at first, working with the warriors who had saved them. But the humans treated everyone with respect. They shared their food. They helped rebuild homes. They didn't act like conquerors. A human soldier named Sungho worked nearby, lifting pieces of broken wall that would have taken 3 Kelmar to move. He was massive, even for a human with muscles that seemed too large for his armor. But when a Kelmar child approached him shyly, he knelt down and spoke gently. You want to help? He asked the child. Here, hold this tool for me. Very important job. The child beamed with pride, clutching the tool carefully. Jiwon spent most of her time in the medical center. She worked alongside Kelmar doctors treating the wounded. Yaren often visited, bringing supplies or just offering company. She had become friends with the human medic over the past few days. Your people heal quickly, Jiwon commented, checking a colonist's bandages. That's good. It means most of these injuries won't leave permanent damage. Will you stay? Yaren asked. After everything is repaired? Jiwon shook her head. We'll leave a small security team, but most of us will move on. There are other places that need help. Other distress calls? So many? More than you'd think. Jiwon's expression was sad. The galaxy is bigger than most species realize. And there are always people falling through the cracks. People no one wants to help because it's too expensive or too dangerous or just not convenient. Yaren thought about that. Is Earth really so different? Don't you have the same problems? Oh, we have plenty of problems, Jiwon admitted. But Earth learned something a long time ago. We learned it the hard way through wars and disasters. We learned that if you don't help others, eventually no one will help you. And more than that, we learned that every life matters, not just human lives, all lives. That evening, Elder Torvak hosted a gathering in the repaired community center. He wanted to formally thank the humans. The building was packed with colonists and soldiers. Food was shared, though human rations mixed oddly with Kelmar cuisine. No one seemed to mind. Daehyun stood when Torvak called for attention. The room went quiet. Everyone wanted to hear what the human commander would say. Elder people of Varus 9, Daehyun began. We didn't come here expecting thanks. We came because you needed help. That's all the reason we needed. He paused, looking around the room. But I won't lie to you. We lost people in this fight. 89 of my soldiers died defending this settlement. 200 more were wounded. Some of them will never fully recover. The room fell silent. Yaren felt her chest tighten. She had seen human bodies being loaded onto transport ships. She had tried not to think about what they represented. Real people. People with families back on Earth. We knew the cost when we came, Daehyun continued. Every one of my soldiers volunteered for this mission. They knew the odds. They came anyway because that's who we are. That's who Earth is. He smiled slightly. So when you thank us, remember them too. Remember that freedom isn't free. Someone always pays the price. After the gathering, Hyerin found Jiwon sitting alone outside, looking up at the stars. The medic seemed tired, sad. "Are you okay?" Hyerin asked, sitting beside her. "I lost 3 patients today," Jiwon said quietly. 3 human soldiers who survived the battle but died from their wounds. "I couldn't save them." She wiped her eyes. "I hate this part. The fighting is one thing, but watching good people die after when you can't do anything, that's worse." Hyerin didn't know what to say. She just sat with Jiwon, sharing the silence. "One of them," Jiwon said eventually. "His name was Bowman. He was 19 years old. Just a kid, really. He talked about his family constantly. His mother made him promise to come home safe." She laughed bitterly. "I had to write a message to her. Had to explain that her son died saving strangers on a planet she's never heard of." "How do you explain that? How do you make that okay?" "You can't," Hyerin said softly. "But maybe you tell her that her son was a hero, that he saved 50,000 lives, that people here will remember him, that will teach our children about the humans who came when no one else would." Jiwon looked at her. "Would that help? Would that make it worth it?" "I don't know," Hyerin admitted. "But it's all we can offer. Our memory, our gratitude, our promise to be better." The next day, the humans held a memorial service for their fallen. They erected a monument in the center of the settlement. It was simple, just a stone pillar with names carved into it. 89 names. 89 people who would never go home. Every colonist attended. Thousands of Kelmar stood in silence as Daehyun read each name. After each name, a human soldier would step forward and place a small flag at the base of the monument. The Earth flag, blue and green representing their homeworld. When the ceremony ended, something unexpected happened. The colonists didn't leave. Instead, they formed a line. One by one, they approached the monument. They touched the names. They whispered thanks. Some left flowers or small tokens. They wanted the fallen humans to know that their sacrifice mattered. Hyerin watched an old Kelmar woman place a handmade bracelet at the monument. The woman was crying. "I never met you," she whispered to the names. "But you saved my grandchildren. Thank you. Thank you." That night, Hyerin couldn't sleep. She kept thinking about the humans, about their sacrifice, about how they had traveled so far to save people they didn't know. It didn't make sense by any logical standard. It was inefficient, expensive, dangerous, but it was also beautiful. She found Daehyun on the roof of the command building looking at reports on a data pad. He glanced up when she approached. "Can't sleep either?" "Too much to think about," Hyerin said. She sat beside him. "Commander, can I ask you something?" "Of course." "When you received our distress call, how long did it take Earth to decide to help?" Daehyun smiled. "About 30 seconds. The message came through to military command. The Admiral read it. She said, 'Get a team ready.' That was the whole decision process. But the cost, the risk. Your people didn't even know us." "Didn't matter," Daehyun said simply. "You were in trouble. You called for help. That's enough." He looked at her seriously. "Hyerin, Earth almost destroyed itself once. We had wars that killed billions. We poisoned our own planet. We came very close to the end. But we survived and we learned something. We learned that the only thing that really matters is how we treat each other. Not just our own species, everyone. Is that why you fight? Why you're so good at it?" "We're good at fighting because we had to be," Daehyun admitted. "Earth has a violent history. We've been at war for thousands of years. We learned every trick, every tactic. We became very, very good at killing." He paused. "But we also learned when to fight. And more importantly, who to fight for. We don't fight for territory or resources anymore. We fight for people. For the ones who can't fight for themselves." Hyerin felt tears on her cheeks. "I'm sorry so many of your people died for us." "Don't be sorry," Daehyun said gently. "Be worthy of it. Build a good life here. Take care of each other. Help others when you can. That's how you honor their sacrifice." Over the next week, repairs continued. The settlement slowly returned to normal. Human engineers helped rebuild the damaged buildings, making them stronger than before. They installed new defensive systems, hidden but effective. If the Vreks ever came back, Varus 9 would be ready. On the last day before the human fleet departed, Hyerin stood with a crowd of colonists at the landing field. The soldiers were boarding their transports. Jiwon found Hyerin in the crowd and hugged her. "Take care of yourself," Jiwon said. "Maybe we'll meet again someday." "I hope so," Hyerin said. And Jiwan? Thank you. For everything. Jiwan smiled. Thank you for reminding us why we do this. Stay safe, Hyarin. As the human ships lifted into the sky, the colonists waved. Some cheered. Some cried. Hyarin did both. She watched until the ships were just tiny points of light heading toward the stars. Elder Torvak stood beside her. They're gone, he said softly. I already miss them. They'll come back if we need them, Hyarin said with certainty. That's who they are, Torvak nodded. The galaxy doesn't understand them yet, but it will. Earth has changed everything. Hyarin looked at the monument in the square, at the 89 names carved in stone. She thought about the young soldier Bowman, who would never see his mother again. About Jiwan, who carried the weight of the ones she couldn't save. About Daehyun, who led his people into danger without hesitation. She thought about all of it, and she made a promise. She would tell this story. She would make sure everyone knew what Earth had done, what humans were capable of when someone needed help. The galaxy needed to know that someone out there still cared. Someone still came when you called. 3 months passed. Life on Varus 9 returned to something close to normal. The crops grew. Children played in the rebuilt square. But everything was different now. The colonists no longer felt alone in the galaxy. They knew someone was watching. Someone who cared. Hyarin worked as a teacher now, helping young Kelmar understand the wider galaxy. She told them stories about Earth, about the humans who came from the stars. The children loved these stories. They drew pictures of soldiers in armor. They played games where they pretended to be defenders of peace. One day, a message arrived at the settlement. It came from the Galactic Council. They wanted to send representatives to Varus 9 to investigate the incident with the Vrex. Elder Torvak was nervous as he prepared for their arrival. Why now? He asked Hyarin, who had become his assistant. Where were they when we needed help? They want to understand what happened, Hyarin said. They want to understand Earth. The council delegation arrived in a luxurious ship. 3 representatives stepped out. A Bravak named Counselor Vrenna led them. She was tall and elegant with blue skin and silver eyes. She looked at the settlement with curiosity. Elder Torvak, she said, her voice smooth. Thank you for receiving us. The council regrets that we could not provide assistance during your crisis. We had resource limitations. Torvak's expression was cold. You told us to surrender. You abandoned us to die. Vrenna looked uncomfortable. The situation was complex. Varus 9 is very remote. The cost of mounting a defense would have been enormous. The council had to consider the greater good, and yet Earth came, Torvak said quietly. They paid the cost you wouldn't pay. Vrenna nodded slowly. Yes, that is what we wish to discuss. Earth is new to galactic politics. They don't understand how things work. Their actions here, while admirable, have created complications. Complications? Hyarin couldn't stay quiet. They saved 50,000 lives. And started a diplomatic incident with the Vrex Dominion, Vrenna replied. The Vrex have filed formal complaints. They claim Earth violated territorial boundaries. They demand compensation for lost ships and soldiers. Torvak laughed. It was not a happy sound. The Vrex invaded us. They killed our people. And they want compensation? The galaxy operates on rules, Elder. Treaties, agreements, Earth ignored all of them. They simply acted without permission or consultation. Such behavior is dangerous. If every species acted this way, there would be chaos. Over the next few days, the council representatives interviewed colonists. They examined the battle sites. They reviewed recordings of the fighting. Hyarin watched them work, feeling growing anger. They seemed more interested in procedure than in what had actually happened. One evening, Hyarin found Counselor Vrenna alone, looking at the memorial monument. The woman was reading the names of the fallen humans. 89 deaths. Vrenna said softly. So young, most of them. What a waste. It wasn't a waste, Hyarin said sharply. They died protecting innocent people. Vrenna turned to her. Child, you don't understand. The council must think about the long term, about stability, about maintaining order. If we allow Earth to simply intervene wherever they wish, other species will do the same. There will be endless conflicts. Better that than endless suffering, Hyarin replied. You talk about order, but what good is order if it leaves people to die? The council abandoned us. Earth didn't. That's the only fact that matters. It's not that simple. Yes, it is, Hyarin said. You're just afraid. Afraid that Earth makes you look bad. Afraid that other species will see what they did and ask why you didn't do the same? Vrenna didn't answer, but something in her expression suggested Hyarin had hit the truth. The council scheduled a formal hearing. They summoned representatives from Earth to explain their actions. Dahyun was called to testify. He arrived on Varus 9 first, wanting to check on the colony before the hearing. Hyarin ran to meet him when his ship landed. "Commander, it's good to see you." Dahyun smiled. He looked tired but pleased to be back. "How is everything here?" "Good, better than good, actually. But the council—" She trailed off, unsure how to explain. "I know," Dahyun said. "Don't worry. We expected this." The hearing took place in the community center. It was broadcast across the galaxy. Millions of beings watched as Dahyun stood before the council representatives. Councilor Vrenna spoke first. "Commander Dahyun, Earth stands accused of violating galactic sovereignty. You entered Vrex territory without authorization. You engaged their military forces, resulting in thousands of casualties. You ignored proper diplomatic channels. How do you respond to these accusations?" Dahyun stood straight. His voice was calm but firm. "I respond that every single accusation is correct. We did all those things, and we'd do them again." Murmurs spread through the crowd. Vrenna leaned forward. "You admit to breaking galactic law?" "I admit to saving lives," Dahyun replied. The colonists of Varus 9 sent a distress call. They were being attacked by a hostile force. They asked for help. The council told them no one would come. Earth said yes. "But the cost was worth it," Dahyun interrupted. "Every life saved was worth it. Every soldier who fell protecting the innocent was worth it." "You talk about law and order, counselor, but what good are laws that protect aggressors and abandon victims?" Another counselor spoke up. The Vrex claimed they had legitimate grievances with this colony. "Perhaps if we had investigated—" "They were slaughtering civilians," Dahyun said, his voice harder now. "There's no legitimate grievance that justifies that. You want to talk about investigations? You had days to investigate before we arrived. You chose not to act." Vrenna's expression was troubled. "Commander, you must understand our position. The Council represents thousands of species. We cannot respond to every crisis. We must prioritize. We must consider resources and strategic value." "Strategic value," Dahyun repeated slowly. He looked at the crowd of colonists watching. "You hear that? You weren't strategically valuable. That's why they left you to die." He turned back to Vrenna. "Earth doesn't think that way. We don't calculate whether people are worth saving. They needed help. That's the only calculation that matters. And when the next crisis comes, and the one after that, will Earth respond to all of them? Can you possibly sustain such a commitment?" "We'll respond to as many as we can," Dahyun said. "We'll save everyone we're able to save. And yes, it will be expensive. Yes, we'll lose soldiers. Yes, it will be hard. But it's the right thing to do. And Earth has never let difficulty stop us from doing what's right." The hearing continued for hours. The council tried to corner Dahyun with legal arguments and procedural concerns, but he remained steady. He spoke simply and directly. He made the council representatives look at what they had done and what they had failed to do. Finally, Vrenna stood. "The council will need time to deliberate. Commander, you will remain on Varus 9 until we reach a decision regarding Earth's actions." "As you wish," Dahyun said. "I have nowhere more important to be." That night, Hyarin sat with Dahyun outside the community center. He looked exhausted. "How do you think it went?" she asked. "Honestly, I don't know. The council is scared. They've operated a certain way for thousands of years. We're challenging everything they believe about how the galaxy should work. Will they punish Earth? They might try," Dahyun admitted. "But there's not much they can do. Earth isn't part of their system yet. We don't follow their rules because we never agreed to them." He smiled slightly. "Besides, I think some species agree with us. They just haven't said so publicly yet." He was right. Over the next few days, messages began arriving at Varus 9. Not official communications, but private ones. From colonies on the frontier, from species who felt ignored by the council, from people who had heard what Earth did and wanted to say thank you. One message came from a mining colony on the other side of the galaxy. "We face raids every few months. The council says we're too remote to defend. Could Earth help?" Another came from an agricultural world. "Our children are starving because of trade restrictions. The council won't intervene. Would Earth listen?" More and more messages came, each one a cry for help. Each one from people the council had decided weren't worth saving. Dae-hyun read them all. His expression was serious. This is bigger than we thought. There are so many people who need help. Can Earth help all of them? Hyrin asked. No, Dae-hyun admitted. We don't have the resources. We're just one planet, one species. We can't save everyone. He looked at the growing pile of messages. But we can save some. And maybe, if we show the way, others will start helping too. A week later, the council announced their decision. Councillor Vrenna read it formally. After careful consideration, the council has decided that Earth's actions on Varus 9, while technically in violation of established protocols, were motivated by humanitarian concerns. No formal sanctions will be imposed. However, Earth is advised to work within proper channels in future incidents. It was a weak response. Everyone knew it. The council couldn't punish Earth without admitting they had failed to help Varus 9 themselves. They couldn't condemn the rescue without looking cruel. But Dae-hyun wasn't satisfied. When asked for his response, he stood before the cameras broadcasting across the galaxy. Earth appreciates the council's decision, but let me be clear. We will not wait for permission to save lives. We will not fill out forms while people die. 1 year had passed since the Battle of Varus 9. Hyrin stood in front of a classroom filled with young Kelmar students. On the wall behind her hung a large map of the galaxy. She had marked it with pins. Each pin represented a place where Earth had intervened. There were dozens of them now. After Varus 9, she explained to her students, Earth continued to answer distress calls. They saved a mining colony from pirates. They stopped a plague on a research station. They evacuated civilians from a war zone. Each time, the Galactic Council said it was too difficult or too expensive. Each time Earth came anyway. A young student raised his hand. Teacher Hyrin, why doesn't the Council help like Earth does? Hyrin chose her words carefully. The Council is old and large. They have many rules. Sometimes rules become more important than people. Earth reminds them that people should always come first. The truth was more complicated. The Galactic Council was struggling. More species were questioning their leadership. More colonies were looking to Earth for protection instead of the Council. Some Council members wanted to work with Earth. Others saw them as a threat to the established order. Meanwhile, Earth was changing too. Admiral Taewon commanded a growing fleet. Ships from other species had joined them. Pilots and soldiers from a dozen worlds now served alongside humans. They all believed in the same thing, that everyone deserved protection, that no one should be left behind. On Earth, in the military headquarters, Dae-hyun attended a briefing. He had been promoted to general now, overseeing all off-world operations. The room was filled with officers and advisors. Maps and data filled the screens. We're receiving 50 to 60 distress calls per week now, an intelligence officer reported. We can respond to maybe 10 or 15, depending on resources. The rest we have to pass on information to local authorities or allied species. Not enough, Dae-hyun said. We need more ships, more trained personnel. The budget, someone began, will be approved. A voice interrupted. Everyone turned. A woman in civilian clothes entered the room. She was Earth's ambassador to Galactic Affairs, a sharp woman named Yuna. The government just allocated another 1 trillion credits for defense expansion. The people support it. They've seen the footage from Varus 9 and other operations. They're proud of what we're doing. Dae-hyun nodded. Good, but it's not just about resources. We need allies. We can't do this alone forever. That's actually what I came to discuss, Yuna said. She activated a holographic display. 7 species have formally requested military cooperation agreements with Earth. They want to train with us, learn our tactics, coordinate on rescue operations. Which species? The Kelmar, obviously. They want to help others the way we helped them. Also the Brevak, despite their council membership. The Tauren, the Melish. 3 others. All of them have been impressed by our methods and our principles. Dae-hyun studied the list. This could work. If we coordinate properly, we could cover more territory. Save more people. There's more, Yuna continued. The Galactic Council wants to meet, formally. They want to discuss Earth's role in galactic affairs. They're calling it a summit, a trap? Maybe, but also an opportunity. They're scared, Dae-hyun. We've shown them that their way isn't the only way. Some of them want to change. Others want to stop us. This summit will decide which faction wins. Back on Varus 9, the settlement had grown. New buildings stood where ruins had been. The population had doubled as refugees from other worlds arrived, drawn by stories of the place Earth had saved. Hiren watched construction crews working on a new school. Human engineers worked alongside Kelmar builders, sharing techniques and stories. Elder Torvak approached her. He was older now, his skin more gray, but his eyes were sharp. "We received interesting news today. The council is holding a summit about Earth. They've invited us to testify. Will you go? We must. Varus 9 has become a symbol. We need to tell our story." He looked at Hiren. "I want you to come with me. To speak for the younger generation." Hiren felt nervous. "Me, I'm just a teacher. You're more than that. You were there when the humans landed. You've told the story better than anyone. The galaxy needs to hear it from you." The summit was held on a neutral station, a massive structure floating in deep space. Representatives from thousands of species gathered. The council chambers were vast, with seats rising in tiers around a central platform. Hiren had never seen so many different beings in one place. The debate was fierce. Species accused Earth of warmongering, of disrupting the peace, of violating sovereignty. But other species defended Earth. They told stories of how Earth had helped them, how human soldiers had saved their colonies when no one else would come. When it was Varus 9's turn to speak, Elder Torvak stood on the central platform. His voice carried through the chamber. "1 year ago, my people were dying. The Vrex had come to destroy us. We called for help. The council said no one would come. They said we weren't important enough, weren't valuable enough." He paused, letting the words sink in. But someone did come. Earth heard our call. They sent soldiers. They fought and died for people they had never met. 89 humans gave their lives for Kelmar civilians. Why? Because it was the right thing to do. He gestured to Hiren. "This is Hiren. She was there. Let her tell you what she saw." Hiren stepped onto the platform. Her legs shook. Thousands of beings watched her. She saw Daehyun in the crowd giving her an encouraging nod. She took a deep breath. "I'm not a soldier or a politician," she began. "I'm just a teacher from a small colony. But I watched humans fight for us. I watched them bleed for us. And I learned something important." She looked around the chamber. "The galaxy is full of rules about what you should do and what you shouldn't do. Rules about borders and territories and proper procedures. But Earth has a simpler rule. If someone needs help, you help them. That's it. That's the whole rule." She pointed to where Counselor Vrenna sat. "The council says Earth is dangerous, that they disrupt the peace. But what peace? The peace that left us to die? The peace that ignores suffering if it's inconvenient? That's not peace. That's just organized cruelty." Murmurs spread through the chamber. Some beings nodded. Others looked angry. Hiren continued. "Earth showed us another way. They showed us that the strong can protect the weak. That distance doesn't matter, that every life has value, and now other species are learning from them, working with them, becoming more like them." She looked directly at the council members. "You can try to stop Earth, you can make rules against them. But you can't stop the idea they represent, the idea that we should care about each other. All of us, no matter where we come from." The chamber erupted in discussion. Some species cheered. Others shouted protests. But everyone was talking. Everyone was engaged. The old order was crumbling and something new was being born. In the end, the council couldn't reach a single decision. They split. Some species joined Earth's coalition, pledging to help defend the defenseless. Other species tried to maintain the old system. But the galaxy had changed. The question was no longer whether to help those in need, but how to help them effectively. After the summit, Daehyun met with the leaders of the new coalition. They called themselves the Guardian Alliance. 7 species had joined, with more considering it. They agreed on simple principles. Respond to distress calls, protect civilians. Work together, put people before politics. This is just the beginning, Daehyun told the assembled leaders. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to face challenges. Some operations will fail. People will die. But we're doing something important. We're building a galaxy where no one has to die alone, where help is always coming. A Brevak admiral named Korvesh nodded. Earth has taught us well, but now we teach each other. Share our strengths, cover our weaknesses. Exactly, Daehyun agreed. We're not trying to conquer the galaxy. We're trying to save it. One colony at a time. One distress call at a time. Months later, Hiren received a message from Daehyun. Earth was establishing training centers across the galaxy. They wanted to create academies where beings from any species could learn to be defenders, to be rescuers. They wanted her to run the academy on Varus 9. We need people who understand what we're fighting for, Daehyun wrote. People who remember what it was like to be helpless and alone. Who remember what it meant when someone finally came. You're perfect for this, Hiran accepted. The Varus 9 Defense Academy opened a year later. Students came from dozens of worlds. They learned tactics from human instructors. They learned medicine from Kelmar doctors. They learned engineering from Tauran specialists. Most importantly, they learned why they were doing this. They learned about service, about sacrifice, about putting others first. 5 years after the Battle of Varus 9, the Guardian Alliance had grown to include 40 species. They operated hundreds of ships. They had saved thousands of colonies. The Galactic Council still existed, but it had been forced to reform, to become more responsive, to actually help people instead of just debating about it. The galaxy was safer now, not perfect. There were still wars and disasters, still suffering and death, but there was also hope. Because everyone knew that if they called for help, someone would answer. The Alliance would come. Hiran stood in her classroom, teaching a new generation of students. On the wall behind her, the memorial monument was displayed.